Navy Seabees of the Naval Mobile Construction Battalion 5's Detail Marshall Islands have been busy constructing a new evacuation shelter for the villagers on the island of Enneber, located 2 miles south of Roinamar on Kwaj Atoll. 6 days a week, the Seabees make the ferry voyage from Roy, where the Port Hueneme, California-based detail is calling home until the end of the project. Ensign Matthew Kreider talked about the project developing on the island.
So our project is the evacuation center. The residents will use it as a muster and gathering point during some sort of disaster or some sort of large storm. The building will have 2 closed-in areas in the back to be able to store emergency supplies and disaster relief supplies. Today we are backfilling and compacting, preparing for a concrete placement for a third of our pad, the floor pad. Once that is complete, we will then go vertical with block. Once we stack the block up about 10 feet, we'll then continue on to the other columns, footers, the other pads, and then we'll start to put a roof on.
A project like this involves everything from work with concrete and rebar to trench digging, form construction, carpentry, electrical work, roofing, and more. It's a build the Navy Seabees do from the ground up, similar to other projects that prior detachments have done on the island in the past, such as medical clinics, water catchment systems, school facilities, and more. Keeping an eye on all the timelines that go into a successful project is Petty Officer First Class Damon Lewis.
I'm the project supervisor. My responsibilities include ensuring materials are on site, tools are on site, the crew have all resources they need, and we put up a quality product in a safe and timely manner.
Construction electrician Third Class Christian Carnate says the build on Enneber and serving as a Navy CB overall is a continual learning opportunity.
What I really like about it is that it's the tools of the trade. I learned a lot of things, building forms to bending rebar. You learn something new every day. That's what I like about it.
Working closely with the Seabees are locals who have joined the Evacuation Center project as apprentices.
It's a pleasure to working with the U.S. Navy Seabees. And I can learn everything over here with them.
Engaging with the local Marshallese is one of the perks of the job, the Seabees said. From working alongside the apprentices to chatting with villagers and playing with the Enneber children, NMCB5's time on the island is sure to leave a lasting impression on each member of the team. The Spartans took on the Turbo Turtles in the 2020 Kwaj Water Polo Championship match Wednesday night. The Turtles went into the game with 8 season wins under their weight belts versus an undefeated record on the high schoolers' part. Here's Alyssa England with an early score for the Spartans. Defense was tough on each side. Here's the Turbo Turtles' Jonas Sherrill as goalie.
Hey, bud.
Probably the toughest position in the pool. As the light fades over the family pool, the Turtles take advantage of an early lead while dozens of fans cheer the teams on. Here's veteran Turbo Turtle Bruce Primo heaving in a 2-point field goal. Primo's Bash brother Brian Charlton teams up to inflict some serious slow-mo damage in the Spartan backfield. Maliana McCollum and Sean Hepler do what they can to deflect Primo's attacks. But it is not enough to stave off the Turbo Turtles' lead going into the half. The teams regroup to lay out their strategy going into the second half. And they tell us what is going through their minds. Here's Todd Emmons of the Turbo Turtles.
I just don't want to get beat by a bunch of high schoolers again.
What's your biggest advantage against the high schoolers?
6'5" grown men.
What's your biggest weakness?
6'5" grown men.
And they're off into the second half. The Turtles poke around in the Spartans' weak spots and do their best to advance their lead. But goalie Miles Sylvester erects a brick wall in front of the net, again and again.
momentum shifts to the Spartans' favor, with Coach Stan Jaswinski guiding them along. The Turtles' defense give the Spartans several opportunities to strike on goal. Some fly off course and nearly kill a cameraman. As the minutes tick by, the teams kick up the intensity. It's a veritable bloodbath in the Milliken family pool. With less than 3 minutes remaining, Spartan forwards Zach Hill and Connor Charlton close the point gap with some slick moves and 17-year-old reaction times. The score is 39-40 with less than a minute on the clock, and Charlton zips in a goal, putting the Spartans in the lead. "30 seconds left in the match, and the Spartans look to secure their lead. England passes to Zach Hill, and Hill launches in 2 points. In the final moments of the game, the Turbo Turtles look for a hope and a prayer, but the genie has vacated their bottle, and it's a game over, man. The 2020 champs take a group photo and show off their skills on the diving board in celebration of their undefeated season and victory over the Turbo Turtles.
At the end of the month of February, known as Black History Month, USACA had a Black History Month observance in honor of the members who served and made an impact during their years in the military. So I talked to a few Kwaj residents about their thoughts on the holiday and people that influenced them.
Black History Month, as far as I'm concerned, should be called World History Month.
Black history is U.S. history.
To me, Black history is American history. It's a way to show the rest of the world about our contributions and the greatness that we have as a culture.
Due to the fact that all the contributions that all people made, be of people of color or white, or whatever the case may be, they all contributed to world history.
The more we know about each other as diverse of a country that we are, the better off we'll be to know our struggles, our accomplishments, not just Black history, Asian American history, Hispanic history. It's just important for us all to know how we contributed to this society.
Who is one of your favorite historical figures?
That would be Malcolm X.
Main ones that stuck out to me most was Carter Woodson.
One of my favorite historical figures, I'll keep it military, is General Roscoe Robinson.
The reason I choose Malcolm X is because you can watch Malcolm X, his evolution when he came into public status. He had one view and he was one way, and then through his journey, he came into better and more intelligible information, and he started to change his views and for the betterment of society and Black people all around.
He was the founder of African American history, which was founded in 1926.
He was one of the first African American graduates of the U.S. Military Academy, West Point, and he was also the first African American commanding general of the 82nd Airborne Division, which is an organization that I previously served with.
Carter Woodson once said, "We should emphasize not African American history, but the African American in the history. We need not a history of selected races or nations, but the history of the world void of national bias, race hate, and religious prejudice."
And he was also the first African American 4-star general. So he's a pretty influential figure that I look up to and not a lot of people know about.
Who is a personal hero that has impacted you?
My hero is Vincent Fauntleroy Jr., my father. He always gave me a sense of pride to be a young black man.
So personal hero, being a big sports guy and being from North Carolina, I'd have to say Michael Jordan.
Valerie Thompson, she created the NASA transmitter. Emma Jamison, she was an astronaut. The reason why I like them the most is that they were women, of course, and then they greatly impacted all cultures.
He gave me a sense of who we were as a people, and he gave me Malcolm X's autobiography when I was 5 years old and explained it to me. And what that did is gave me a sense of how a 21-year-old man at the time felt and the knowledge that I got from Malcolm X. So I was able to navigate through the world and understand a lot better than just a regular 5-year-old, 6-year-old kid.
I grew up in the 90s, so that was my guy back in the day. So for him to have been cut in high school and to come back the next year and ended up being an All-American in high school and in college, and then to be this worldwide figure that everybody knows even outside of sports, I think that was a big inspiration for me, and he's still continuing to do what he did back in the 90s and is still doing it now as the owner of a professional franchise. So I'd have to say Michael Jordan.
What are your thoughts on black representation in America today?
Black representation is very important. It's better than it was 20 to 30 years ago. However, it's a lot more work to do.
I believe that the U.S. is doing a better job, but I believe it's the black citizens themselves are more eager to learn about the history.
Be it as it may, black representation these days in America, and not only just in America, worldwide, is good, bad, and ugly.
But it's very important because it shows youth that there are things that they can achieve, and if they see people that are like them, it gives them something to achieve too.
See, when you think about black history, you think it's slavery, but that's actually an interruption of the history that already existed. See, when you speak about the Grecians and the Romans, you have to understand that they were the ones who we give reverence to as Americans, but they also were taught by African great civilizations.
One thing I would encourage that all African Americans to do, all other race and ethnicity, just continue to defy the expectations, to defy the stereotypes, so we can move forward to a greater history.
So you don't learn that until you actually go to these museums and you deal with people who have higher knowledge as far as the education of history of the world.
February is a great time to reflect not only on black history, but history as a whole. America being the melting pot it is, our history and culture has been influenced by all.
Welcome back to Learning Cousin Mazel. This is your girl here, Meva Clarence. We're going to learn some words or phrases to get you speaking better in the Marshall Islands. Today's phrase is Ijab akomol and is pronounced Ijab akomol. It is great to use when you don't want something offered to you. Remember this phrase when you go out there speaking Marshallese, and tune in next time to learn more Cousin Mazel.